that we're going to discuss is the Purusharthas. And the Purusharthas are considered the four limbs that are used to balance life. So we've got four Purusharthas. We have Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Now, they seem very straightforward and simple, but there's a lot that goes into evaluating and applying these into our life to create balance and harmony in our life. So first, let's take a look at the concept of Dharma. Dharma is our duty to ourselves, our life path, and any obligations you have taken on. So if you choose to have a child, that is your duty now.
Your kitty is your duty.
Yeah. You rescue a little kitty, it's now your duty to take care of it. So we also look at Dharma in relationship to ethics. You made a promise, you made a commitment, now you are ethically responsible, or you've committed a duty to something, someone, or yourself. Your Dharma to your life path. There's also a sense of morality, and that depends on, what type of practice you're practicing. Some people have an amoral practice. I'm not going to judge, but when we're looking at Dharma, we need to consider our yamas: non-stealing, non-violence. We need to consider our niyamas as well. Your duty to yourself and purity, contentment, duty to society, duty to family unit. Now, does that mean if I have family that I've cut out of my life that I'm not fulfilling my duty? No, cutting them out of my life is fulfilling my own duty to myself. So duty can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. But when your responsibilities are in order, it regulates the other aspects of the Purusharthas. So for instance, what is your role in this world? Like, what is your role? Your role is different than my role. Mm-hmm. But whatever your role is in this world, that is your duty. Don't take on other people's duties that don't belong to you. Determine your duty. What are your obligations in this world? Family, work, home, yourself. The sense of duty is different for a lot of different people, but it's something that we need to continually look at. And it can continually be restudied, recultivated. Maybe you decided to take on, let's just use a simple example, PTA for a year. And 6 months in, you're like, I don't want this duty anymore. Well, then properly relinquish your duty. Don't just default on your duties. Okay. What is your sense of perceived obligation? Perceived obligation. So that person at work who's like, well, if I don't take care of everything under the sun, everything will fall apart. Is that really your obligation, or have you just taken that on out of a sense of self-importance? Everybody relies on me. Maybe it wasn't your duty to begin with, but you took it on out of a sense of whatever it is. So sometimes what we perceive our obligations to be needs to be reevaluated and modified. Does your ego need to be fed by your Dharma? Or does your ego feed, creating a false sense of Dharma? You see this in work environments. Oh, if I go on vacation, this place will fall apart. But I'm not willing to teach anybody else to do this job description. So it's all my duty. because I'm that important. Sometimes our sense of duty is just to feed our ego.
And like parents who live off of the accomplishments of their children, you know, I've got to make my child be this way because then it makes me look good, you know.
Yeah, that's weird psychology. I like to ask myself, do my dharmas, do my duties serve my life path? So first of all, you need to know, what is your human project? Why are you here? Why are you in physical form right now? Why? What's your deal? What's your mission? What's your path? And have you taken on duties that support that path? Or have you taken on duties that have completely derailed you from your life path? Can you modify them? Can you relinquish your duties or pass them off responsibly with morality? Or do you have 10 children and then decide to go be a crackhead and leave them all on the street? Like, that's really neglecting your duties. That's bad dharma obligation. Do you decide to take on the role of assisting the sick and dying and then just one day get frustrated and walk away, leave them all behind without responsibly shifting your duties to somebody else? When we look at our duties, our dharma, we need to ask ourselves, are there any obligations or dharma aspects that I'm ignoring? Like, if I look at my life as a whole, my day in and day out, my global functioning, my long-term goals or functioning, my past, is there anything that I'm just frankly neglecting? That's a personal question. Right now, definitely no. I'm on top of it. I'm on it. But there's sometimes in life where suddenly some duties could slip into the cracks. And we need to be honest with ourselves and say, I'm neglecting my duties. I am not completing my dharma. And maybe the dharma needs to be reevaluated and adjusted. Or maybe you need discipline. Get that done, because that's your duty, period. When I think of dharma, I ask myself, how can I best serve not only my own life path, but the world around me through my dharma? Does my dharma support that? Or am I so busy in mundane dharma that doesn't make a difference? Am I just spinning my wheels? Oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this, I have to do that. And none of it serves my life path. And none of it serves the people around me. It's just busy, busy stuff. I know those people. They're not making anything in their life. They're not doing anything with their life. They're not being fulfilled. They're not happy. They're miserable in their own existence. They make their families miserable. They're always talking smack about everybody around them, talking smack about their family, talking smack about their coworkers. But somehow their duty is so important, but it's not serving anything. It's almost like being a martyr of a duty that doesn't even make a difference. Do you know those people? Or at least versions of that. So when we look at dharma, we have to really have that self-study, as well as discipline. So it goes back to the 8 limbs of yoga as well. But let's take a look at artha. Dharma is really easy to grasp. Artha is considered your resources. So resources, some people think is just money, monetary resources. But resources and abundance comes in a lot of different forms. We have resources and artha in the source of food. Do I have enough food to live properly? Do I have proper fuel food to be healthy? So what are my resources? Am I stuck with 99-cent meals because that's all I can afford, so it's junk in, and unhealthy dietary consumption? Do I have enough energy? Artha, a resource. Energy is a resource. That's one of the reasons why I was discussing earlier about not unnecessarily spinning your wheels. Not unnecessarily working out just to work out for the sake of it. Do you need to work out that much? Maybe you're losing life force by not doing it enough. Maybe you don't have enough energy because you're not working out enough. So energy is really important. It has to do with sleep and all the balance that we've talked about in other classes. Artha can be safety. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Shelter. A roof over your head. Warmth. Safety. Artha can be wealth. Money. Doesn't have to be paper money, coin money. It could be trade, barter. But wealth, what does wealth mean when it comes to artha? Having enough to get done what you need to get done. Doesn't have to be overly abundant, but enough to be comfortable to reach your goals, to fulfill your duties, and more. There's also artha in the form of resources. Networking. Friends can be a resource. Having a confidant can be a resource. Having an outlet. But other resources would be, things you need for your life path. The things I need might be totally different than the things you need. We all need different stuff. And then we also have artha as a resource of knowledge. Do you have the knowledge that you need to fulfill your life path, your moksha, your dharma? So when we look at artha as resources, I like to ask myself, do I have enough resource to attain my higher goals? That's it. As long as I have enough to reach my higher goals. And my higher goals are not to drive a Maserati and live in a mansion. That's not my spiritual goals. So then we have to go back to what's your life purpose? What's your dharma? What's your life path? And then do you have enough resources for that life path? Not her life path, not your life path. Not my life path, your life path. Okay? Now, when we're looking at prosperity, we ask ourselves, what does wealth mean to me? Do I only compare my wealth to the person that lives up at the base of the mountains and the house that's 10 times the size of my house with the fancier car and the fancy this and that? Is that what I compare myself to? Because that's going to lead to discontentment. That's going to lead to I don't have enough. That's going to lead to lack. That's going to lead to mental vitiation of suffering. When I look at my artha, I ask myself, what resources do I need for my dharma? For my dharma. Not to keep up with the Joneses, but for my dharma. Do I have enough resources? What do I need more of? Specifically, do you need more cash flow? Do you need more knowledge? Do you need more energy? Do you need more nutrition or better quality of your resources? Sometimes it's not a matter of needing more, it's needing a better quality of resource. And sometimes it takes you doing your duty to make your resources better. I like to ask myself, what do I feel that I never have enough of? If there's one thing that would pop into your mind, I never have enough of that. And we're not talking kids, never have it, But really, what do you feel you never have enough time for, or never have enough of? Is it time, money,
Yes, that's time.
rest, energy? There's always one resource that many people are like, oh, I just don't have enough of that. Well, what can you change to make that resource more abundant, to fulfill your dharma, to reach your moksha, your liberation? Focus all your attention on that. Change that one resource. Tweak it. Alter it. For me, it was I feel like I didn't have enough time. And I was like, well, I can't cut back down. I can't cut down on this duty, or then I won't have enough artha financially. But really, I just needed more time. Alone. So sometimes what we think is a wealth or a resource requires offloading and getting rid of other things. Having less can mean having more. Are you clinging or possessing to clutter and possessions? So when you walk through your house, are you looking at a bunch of stuff in your house that doesn't bring you any happiness? Doesn't bring you closer to your dharma? Doesn't bring you closer to your liberation? It's just things, stuff. Does it bring you happiness?
Can I ask a question about that? So when my grandma and grandpa passed away, I was super close with my grandma, and my mom and my aunt decided that they were going to pretty much get rid of like everything, and I was like, wow, what? Wow, grandma collected this, and she was really partial to this, and my grandma was an interior designer, and her furniture was like her pride, and I'm like, wow, you're gonna get rid of her bedroom set? And I just got really emotional about it, so I took everything.
Fine.
And so I felt like I hoarded all of my grandma's stuff, but what I did hoard of her was like so meaningful to me, and so I see it in my house, well, some of it.
But do you find joy in it?
I think it's fantastic.
See?
And I think that she thinks it's fantastic that it didn't just go to the Goodwill and go to somebody who wouldn't value it or understand the meanings in it. And so is it a bad thing that I have hoarded all of my grandma's stuff? And
It almost sounds like a sense of duty to carry on her legacy and memory.
yeah,
You enjoy it.
I love her stuff.
You find kama, we'll discuss that. You find enjoyment in it.
Yeah, I do. So
It's a
okay.
sense of artha. It's a resource for you. It's not like you have 5 beds.
No.
That's not hoarding it.
Okay.
That's just finding value in it and utilizing it.
Yeah, it's not like it's packed away in the garage and I don't see it. Everything is for display.
Yeah.
So.
No. Don't see
Okay.
anything wrong with that at all.
All right.
Then we get down that path of you have to be a renunciant, have nothing. Just wear a sheet. You have no possessions. Well, I don't know if that's your goal, to be a renunciant and have no possessions. If that's what brings you pleasure and helps you fulfill your duty, well, go for it. I can't fulfill my duty with nothing but a sheet. I got stuff to do. I got people to reach. I've got lives to reach. I need a car. I need a phone. I need some sort of form of locomotion. I need some sort of form of communication, because that is my dharma. So we have to know what the dharma is for evaluating whether our artha is appropriate, not enough, or too little. So another thing that we find with Artha is, am I afraid to have more? Right? Some people are like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Does anybody have that phenomenon?
I have more what though?
Fear having more resources or more riches or more whatever it is. Some people fear it because then with that comes more responsibility. Or they're not.
Sometimes the more you have, the more you want, the more you need in it. And it's a never ending more.
But some people have a real fear of having more. Sometimes it's related to not feeling worthy, undeserving. But through that undeserving, they're not fulfilling their dharma because they don't have the resources they need to fulfill their mission. So there's all sorts of psychology that can go into Artha. Also, does my balance, well, we talked about that. Does my Artha support my dharma? And if it's not supporting your dharma, you need to reevaluate your resources. Now let's look at the third limb, kama, pleasure, desire, gratification, love, joy, fun. The Kama Sutra emphasizes enjoyment of appropriate objects by the five senses through hearing, feeling, seeing, tasting, touching, smelling without addiction. This is Kama. I like how she smells. I like how she feels. I like how she sounds. A lot of enjoyment in this little tiny thing. But some people aren't satisfied with that little stuff.
Yeah.
They're totally addicted to pleasure. Entertain me. Bring me more, and they're never satisfied. So then where do we end up? Abusing five sense organs, drowning them, flooding them, dulling them. We lose that discernment of the subtle enjoyments of life. That enjoyment that you get when you put on your shirt and you touch the different texture of the collar and you're like, that's nice. I like how that feels. Some people are so distorted in their senses that it means nothing to them. Nothing. Or to reach down and touch her little ear. It just kills me. Just a little fuzzy ear. I was like, ooh, I love it. Or putting that one piece of chocolate in your mouth and going, my gosh, that is so good. Versus
The whole bowl.
more. French fries, more. Milkshake, more. There's no enjoyment and pleasure in it. So we need to look at how we receive pleasure. How we receive pleasure and what types of pleasure. Do you receive pleasure only through stuff? Through people? Through objects? Through food? So if you look at each of your five sense organs, how do you receive pleasure through those sense organs? How do you receive pleasure through your eyes?
You should look at.
What do you look at and go, oh, I love looking out the window at the butterflies and the flowers and the jasmine waving in the wind.
Really? Such a beautiful story.
Some people would just be like, it's a garden, who cares? Like, give me porn.
Well, that sense is.
Maybe that's Maybe that's the only thing that will satisfy their visual senses and bring them pleasure or perceived pleasure. I like to sit and watch the sun come up. I sit there and wonder. I'm just like, it never gets old. But other times we're like, no, entertain me more. I want horror. I want horror. I want action. I want suspense. I need to have adrenaline with what I see. Do drama. Drama associated with the vision. Do we have appreciation for the fine things that we look at? To catch that one sparkle from the crystal on the wall and you're like, oh, how beautiful. Versus like, so, there's So it's oftentimes finding that subtle enjoyment in our senses, the sense of smell. I like to smell this little fluffy thing. She smells very different than anything else that I normally have. Kind of like a little warm loaf of kitten.
Well, what does that smell like? A warm loaf of kitten. We're not sure on that scent. Do you have a card for that?
Whereas other people, they're not happy unless there's a pound of scent in the room. 50 Glade plugins.
Well, they just did a whole story on those.
And you walk in, you're like, I can't breathe. And they're like, oh, I don't smell anything. You're like, how do you not smell that? Like, I can't. I'm gonna have an asthma attack in this house. The sense of taste, the sense of hearing, to go outside and just listen to the birds, to wait for the sound of the birds, to listen to the leaves, to listen to just the subtle sounds and the sounds between the sounds. Instead, people are like, put on some, and they just listen to something harsh all day long. Everybody knows that Blake loves punk rock music, and there's sometimes I'm just like, turn it off, we're gonna have a problem. Like it's stimulation overload for me. And when we're always stimulated and overloaded, we can't appreciate the fine little things in life. Because if everything is taken away, I still can look at the sun. I can still listen to the leaves and the birds, unless I'm, solitary confinement in a block house or something. I can still smell the morning air. I can still hear her little meow meow and not interpret it as, what do you want? So when we look at karma, we look at where do we achieve and obtain our gratification? How simple is it? How complex is it? And it can be very complex. I do some very complex things that bring me satisfaction, but they're very simple in their complexity. The more complex is not always the better. And we live in a society that says you can't be happy and satisfied unless it's really over the top. So what am I finding fun and sensual gratification in? What am I doing right now in life that supports karma? Am I getting any karma and pleasure in life? Or am I just wake up, go to work, whine, complain, non-content, blah, 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 and bed. I know a lot of people, they live like that. I'm like, wow, man, life must be miserable in your life. It's always miserable. There's no fun. Go outside, run around, roll on the floor, play with a kitten. Find simple enjoyment. What brings you pleasure? Like if I had to give you a list and I say, list 20 things that you find pleasure in. What would be your top 10 items that you find pleasure in? Top thing on my list, silence. I find great pleasure in, I'm an only child. I love just sitting in silence. I'm like, this is nice. This is really nice. Because when I sit in silence, I can hear that bird out on the tree. I can hear the chimes. I can hear my breath. I don't know, I guess I'm simple. When do you feel your happiest? What are you doing when you're your happiest? When you're just like, yeah, I could die right now and all is well. I could do this forever. This is great. What is that thing? What are those things that make you the happiest?
For me, it's skating. It's just being able
Skating.
to just get on my board and push, and like knowing that I have the physical ability to do that.
And you probably love the sound of the wheels. That
Yeah, and just the way that I can move my body.
the swoosh,
Yeah, the carving.
the sensations,
The air.
the air, looking around, things passing you by.
The smells, I love it. We miss so much of that, the sensory, the nasal sensory when we're in cars. Yeah, you can have your window down, but there's a difference
No, it's
when you're
different.
actually coming by in physical without anything around you.
Skating. What's one of the things you love?
For me, I would say being outdoors. I
Yeah.
don't get to be outdoors enough. So just, I mean, a hike, just being among nature
Yeah,
and quiet.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
I don't get to do it much.
When are you just in your element?
Jamming with good musicians,
Jamming some good music.
you know,
Yeah.
other people that are really talented and you're flowing and it's like this creative, incredible energy. It's like, I could die happy.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you?
Mine is like water. Like I love to be around water and my dog. So like if I have the two, that's it. My life is just complete. It's the sound, I can just sit there because I like to hike. Used to hike up to Etiwanda, and there's this one squirrel, and I would go every
Squirrel.
weekend.
Squirrel.
And I would just watch this squirrel, and I would look down like, oh my god, I've been here for 4 hours watching
Staring at a squirrel.
this squirrel.
To the
This is
squirrel.
like, but
Yes.
it's like my happy place. I love it there.
I was trying to meditate in my yard the other day, and this baby squirrel in this huge tree that I have was making all kinds of noise. And finally I got up and was like, what the F? And I'm looking for it, and there's my dog sitting under the tree just watching.
How about you?
The Manila Palm Desert, 117, baking in the sun, sweating profusely.
Wow. One person's
Wow.
pleasure is another person's hell.
I could die happy just sweating in the sun.
I would die, but not happy.
To each his their own.
How about you?
I love going to the beach, laying on the sand, just watching the waves and people watching.
Oh, I
like
love to
I could
people
literally
watch.
do it for hours.
I love
I did that with my mom on Mother's Day, and we just like lost track of time, hearing the waves, hearing just like the sounds everywhere around you,
Yeah.
and just like the warmth and the breeze, all of it.
Now, what if you could retool your dharma and your responsibilities so that you had more time for that?
I did.
Yes, you did.
I'm on the path.
Yeah.
Starting to.
Yeah. We have to capture those beautiful opportunities to engage our 5 senses and to live that moment where you're just like, is this just magic all around me at this moment? Why do I feel so wonderful in this moment? We need to seek that out and balance it with the Dharma. and the pursuit of artha. Now, when we look at kama, this pleasure, are there any pleasures that are distracting you from your unhappiness? So sometimes we take up behaviors that we're like, oh yeah, this is fun, this is great, I love doing this, but really it's just a camouflage for my underlying unhappiness.
Give an example.
Addiction. Alcoholism. Yeah, my favorite thing is go out and party with the guys or the ladies or whatever. But really, it's disguising the masking of unhappiness.
But you're not wanting to deal with your real life.
Right. Yeah. Or some people will become porn addicted because they don't want to deal with their broken relationship. It's an avoidance of their unhappiness. Or do you have guilt about experiencing kama? Oh no, but I have to get all this done. Everybody in the world depends on me and I'm not worthy of any downtime and pleasure. I know those people. Sometimes we deprive ourselves of enjoyment for whatever reason. For whatever reason, there's a lot of reasons.
You have to find a happy medium.
Yeah. Do you have enough time
No.
for your kama, your pleasure? And like I said, if not, redistribute if possible. And sometimes it's in chunks of time. Sometimes there's just a ton of duty, 3 months straight, and like, oh, I just have to get through this. And then, poof, oh, there's the balance. So it doesn't always have to be within a 24-hour frame, or within a 1 week frame, or a 1 month frame. Sometimes it's, bam, 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 duty, 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 duty for
Before.
a year solid. You're like, oh, I just got to get past this. And then you get the balance.
But if you don't finish the duty, you can't enjoy the kama.
Yeah.
So you're like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And do you have enough artha for your kama?
God, you need a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Do you have the resources for it? Do you have the time for it? Does your kama require money? And nobody in this room listed a kama, pleasure, that required money. Nobody in this room. We have beach, sun, water, music, nature, a skateboard.
That might cost
But even
her
if she
a
didn't have a skateboard, she'd probably just walk.
Yeah, I mean,
Nobody listed a pleasure that required money.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Well, I think we're all in a different state than people who live in a box.
Yeah.